on my left.
Weisinger here.
Albertson.
Bowman.
Perdine.
Janzak.
Williams here.
Absent is our chairman. He's on a cruise right now, so he's an excused absent. You want to certify the
Nope. So
posting?
because, that's a lead-in, so because we have the absence of our chairperson, now this would be the time where you all, the remaining members of the Plan Commission, will have to appoint somebody to chair the meeting.
I make a motion to appoint Dan Goldman to chair this meeting.
I'll second it.
Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of nomination of Dan for chairman, acting chairman at 8, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Good. Thanks, Ron.
Time sheets.
That will carry on to item 3 on our agenda, certify posting of the meeting. Jamie?
So I certify on February 18th, the amended agenda for the Town of Rome Plan Commission for March 8th was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 2:48 p.m., posted at the Rome Town Hall at 12:44 p.m., posted at the Leicester Public Library of Rome at 8:28 a.m., posted at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 9:16 p.m., and it had legal printing on February 22nd and March 1st, and the two comp plan notices were noticed 30 days in advance, both on posting boards and in the Tribune.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, approve the agenda.
Motion
make-
to.
Go ahead. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Motion by Halverson, second by Weisinger. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 5, citizen comments. I don't believe we have any. Is that
No
correct?
comment cards.
Okay, we'll dispense with reading that language then. No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Item 6, information updates, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements.
I have nothing.
Anybody have anything?
So I would just announce that joining us today is Emily Zettes. Today is her second day. She's our new zoning administrator. So, welcome, Emily. So
Yes, welcome, Emily.
this meeting, Nick and I will still do the majority of, and we will slowly integrate Emily into taking over these meetings. But yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else, anything? Okay, item 7, open public hearing. 7A, consideration of the proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment from forestry to rural residential and zoning map amendment from FR forest and outdoor recreation to R5 rural estate residence district relating to the property owned by John Ames described as follows. Parcel number 030-00536-0000, also described as the northwest quarter, southwest quarter, section 03, town 20 north, range 06 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, total area 40 acres.
The applicant, Mr. Ames, is with us here tonight. He is requesting an amendment of zoning from FR Forest and Recreation to, you'll see actually on his application, R4, rural residence. The reason for that change is just for the size of residence that could be constructed. FR requires a 1,500 square foot and R5 requires 1,500 square foot. R4 requires 760 square foot for a resident, but there is not an intent to make this parcel any smaller than the 40 acres that it currently is. Letters were sent to 4 property owners within 200 feet of the affected area. I did hear from property owners, but only to ask if the parcel was potentially going to be divided any smaller than the 40. And as noted, the comprehensive plan was noticed 30 days in advance of the Plan Commission meeting tonight. Mr. Ames is here if you do have questions.
Yeah, do any of the commissioners or the members of the public have questions for the property owner?
What's the address of that we're discussing?
That would not have an address yet,
It doesn't have an address yet.
but
It
it's
was
off of
just-
Akron, right?
Yep.
Corner of
just be-
10th and Akron on the southeast corner.
I'm John's neighbor, and I just already asked him, my concern was.
If you could,
You gotta
Please,
go up to the
yeah.
microphone,
I'm sorry.
and if you could sign in, as well.
I'm up on Main Trail, so I'm over here probably here, but it's, and then,
Thank you.
and then, St. Andrews is on the agenda too. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm the guy that called in. I was just curious on, what the zoning was and if it was gonna be like lotted out in half-acre partials or what, and what that was gonna do to my property, which is the 40 acres just north of John's. So that was my concern and my question.
As R5, it has to be 35 acres or more,
Yep.
minimum.
So, and this would be a request, I understand it was on the agenda for R5, but this would be a request for R4. We would change that, a request to R4 instead of R5. So the minimum would be 5 acres, but the request for that is because of the size of the structure to be built, not because of a desire to wanna divide.
But what happens in the future? Can he divide it at that point then?
If a home is constructed, it would depend on where that home would be, but it would have to go through our land division ordinance. It would still have to funnel through that process.
Well, I'm against anything in forest area as R4, we've been pushing the R5, so we have bigger parcels up there and not have these subdivided into smaller sections.
what is the size of the home that's proposed?
Would be 760 square
700,
feet,
okay.
yeah. R5 is just 1,500 square feet, so would have to have a larger home size, and that's living square footage, so garage space would not count towards that.
But Jamie, just to clarify, we would have protection against random future subdividing, right?
Yeah, it would have to go through this land subdivision ordinance if it would be requested, yes. So it would have to, if it's 4 lots or less, it wouldn't have to come back through plan commission, but if you wanted to, because this has a findings of fact, you could actually put that as part of the findings of fact, that any land division would have to come back to plan commission for approval.
To that point, so with the CSM, which is what's being referenced here, the way our ordinance is worded is the zoning administrator has the ability to approve CSMs or can refer it to the plan commission. We've done that before where certain CSMs have been referred to the plan commission. You can, as a condition of approval in your findings of fact, require that future land uses, land divisions, if any, would have to come through the plan commission.
Could we also add a conditional use, say it has to be kept as 40 acres?
So add as a condition, you're saying, that it has to be, remain as a 40-acre parcel?
Right.
Potentially, I'm just thinking, okay, so if it breaks the condition, then does it go back to the, it can't just go back to the original zoning, so,
What about if we left it at R5 and put a variance in there that we would allow a house of 760 square feet?
so, so the question was, what if we, rezone it to R5 and then allow it to be, a smaller home on it? So that would be a variance, right? I mean, and you really can't do variances, it would be the Board of Zoning Appeals that would do that. So any deviation, I don't know that we have, for example, a conditional use being smaller than smaller than that. I don't know that you can deviate, from that regulation without it being a variance, and that of course would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, it would have the 3-part test, and I'm not sure that you hit undue hardship there. in order to qualify for the variance.
Just trying to find a way to keep it as R5.
Okay. If there's no further conversation on that item at this point, we will move on. 7B, consideration of the proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment from Forest Street Outdoor Recreation and zoning map amendment from FR Forest and Outdoor Recreation to PSP, public, semi-public, relating to the property owned by the town of Rome described as follows. Parcels number 030-00977-0000, 030-00978-0000, 030-00998-0015, 030-00998-0020, 030-00998-0025, 030-01032-0000, 030-01033-0000, 030-01039-0000, 030-01066-0000. All parcels also described as part of sections 28, 29, 32, 33, Town 20 North, Range 06 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Total area 388.95 acres. That was fun.
So the applicant in this case is the town of Rome, and we are requesting the amendment of zoning from FR to public semi-public. This land is all located within Derek Hughes Recreational Park. There were 17 notice letters sent to property owners within 200 feet of the affected parcel. And again, the comp plan change amendment that would be needed for this was noticed 30 days in advance. We did have some contact from neighbors to clarifying that that this was all part of Derek Hughes Recreational Park, but no other written comments submitted.
Yeah, and none of those contacts were opposed after explanation.
I wouldn't say opposed, no. We did discuss items that are happening at Derek Hughes Recreational Park, but not the stated objection to the zoning amendment.
And just to comment that the reason that the zoning amendment is being requested is because we had placed that sign there, and so to place that sign there, it needed to be zoned as public, semi-public. And so nothing else, I don't think, is planned to take place at that park that wasn't or originally planned and would have been allowed as it was currently zoned.
Is there a possibility that that trail that's in there now, ATV trail, that's already there, could be used as a cross-country ski trail in the winter and groomed that way?
So we don't currently own a groomer. I'm not saying that, I mean, at some point in the future, if we did, I think Arrowhead and Sand Valley both do some grooming of trails for cross-country skiing. So we would, I mean, it's something we could always discuss in the future.
It just seems like it's just from Highway 13, the terrain is rolling enough to where I think it would be kind of an interesting trail system for cross-country skiing.
Okay, any other comments on this agenda item? Not. 7C, consideration of issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. The short-term rental at the property located at 341 Spring Trail, owned by Miller Nakusa Investments LLC, also described as Lot 72 of North Water addition to Lake Arrowhead. Southeast quarter, northwest quarter, section 18, Town 20 North, Range 06 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 030-03680-0000.
So this is a short-term rental application, conditional use permit. Again, we do not prorate, short-term rental, permits. So if the applicant becomes permanent, before July 1, then they would have to again go through the licensing process for next year. There were 12 notice letters sent to properties within 200 feet of this affected property. Again, did have some calls with questions about short-term rentals in the community with this, but no one that submitted written comments for the meeting tonight. And I have the staff recommendation in there of an occupancy of 16 and a vehicle maximum of 6.
Is the property owner present?
Yes.
If there's anything that you'd like to share with the commission, you're welcome to come up to the podium here.
Yeah, nothing in particular. We live in the Milwaukee area, bought it for the family, and anytime that we're not using it, we'd like to rent it out if possible. So we plan on using it quite a bit, and looking forward to being up here. It's a great area and beautiful.
Do you have somebody in the area that's going to maintain it in your absence?
We have a few contacts up here, yep.
So, do you have somebody that would be somebody that you could, that we could have their number on file and they would be a 24-hour, 7-day?
That would be me.
But you're not within 25 miles of the property. Would you have somebody within 25 miles of the property that could be?
Is that a requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it potentially could be from.
Yeah, we can have that. We can
Yeah.
make that work.
And then the second question is, just so I'm clear, you're asking for 5-year as the duration?
I think I submitted it in January, to be honest. I don't really remember. What are there multiple
It
options?
just says, yeah, proposed term of the conditional use is 5 years on your application. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, is that standard? I don't know. Should I ask for more? Should I ask for less?
I can't advise you as that, but the duration is important.
Yeah, 5 years is a pretty good start, I think.
Understanding that this then sunsets at 5 years, and you'd have to come and ask for another conditional use permit.
We
Would it affect
often-
it if I asked for 10 or 20? Like,
We
I'm not familiar with the whole process, so I don't really know what's standard up here.
often do indefinite as long as you carry a valid license with the town.
Oh, even better.
Okay.
I'll try that.
And this property is located on water?
Yes.
Would the renters be able to use your boat while they rent it?
No.
Okay. And if we put that as a condition, that boat use would not be part of the rental, is that okay?
For how long?
It would be indefinite, that they would not be able to utilize the boat.
I would prefer not to be the case.
I think you better think about that. Because you're going from an indefinite now, you're thinking of indefinite. You have to think of what's going to happen with all your other things that are going along with it during that period. If any of these changes that you would want to make, you'd have to come back before us again to make a change. And that can be, if you definitely don't want them to use your boat, that's fine, that's totally your, but that will show up as your part of your agreement.
But we don't want to necessarily eliminate that as an option for the future use. But the first year, I don't want, it's not going to
I
be.
don't know how you can do that.
Well,
Amazing
then I'll
is
ask- then I'll
he's
ask
not
for-
asking for it to be a condition. He's
Right.
asking for it to be left off as any condition that would be put on the approval. Whether you decide to do that or not is certainly up to you. But I think what I'm hearing him request is that not be a condition. It sounds like the intention is not to allow the use, but he's not looking for it to be a condition that would then trigger
Right.
the need to come back in front of this body to get a conditional use permit.
That's not something we put on as a condition in the
Yeah,
past. so.
normally, no.
You have
So
put
it's
on-
either yes or no, is that the case? Or do you guys not allow boat rentals? Or what is
have-
the process?
We have,
We've had beach clubs, we have said,
Club properties would
That's
have them,
different.
yeah.
you own the you own right up to the water from your property, is that correct?
No, not on the
Not on Lake
Arrowhead.
Arrowhead.
That's correct, you're in Arrowhead, I'm sorry.
But the property is on water.
It is
You have a dock,
Yep,
and your boat is at the dock,
correct.
yes.
Well, it's not a beach club, that's where we have a concern
Yeah.
on short-term rentals.
What would be the conditions where you would allow your boat to be part of the rental package?
I mean, maybe in the future, if I get an insurance policy that would allow it, I would consider it, but to be honest, I'm not in the state where I wanna do that right now. but I want to leave the option open in the future if it's an opportunity to potentially do that.
So we just wouldn't put that as a condition, period, and he can do what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, we have minimum standards for insurance. As long as he meets that, then we'd be okay with the short-term rental license.
Any other questions on this item? Comments?
Anyone else here that wants to comment on this item?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, 7D. Consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. The short-term rental at the property located at 407 St. Andrews Trail, owned by Brian and Vicky Oakes, also described as lots 33, 34, and 35 of St. Andrews addition to Lake Arrowhead, southwest quarter, northwest quarter, section 20, town 20 north, range 06 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 030-04550-0010.
Again, a conditional use permit for a short-term rental. Same items apply as the previous applicant. This property had 16 notice letters that were sent to properties within 200 feet of the affected parcel. And we would be recommending tonight an occupancy of 6 with a maximum vehicles of 4.
And the property owners are present?
Yes, their property manager is present.
I'm here on the owner's behalf, Deb with Cottage Keeper, and we maintain the property. We have cleaning people, we have maintenance people, I'm on call if something goes wrong, so we have several homes in the area.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners or any of the members of the public have any questions regarding this? We have some folks behind you there, Jamie. If you could please come up to the podium.
So is this property owner never going to be at the property?
Yes, they will.
How much of their time? 20%, 50%?
Well, they can block off whatever weeks they want. So they're from Ohio,
Yeah.
so they probably will use it, I'd say 20%.
And you said a maximum of how many cars? 5?
Four, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, 4, yes.
4 cars, 6
6
people.
occupancy.
Because when it is being used, the property is full. Cars, boats, ATVs, jet skis,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Is there a limit, like, on, like, ATVs and boats and all the stuff that you can have? It's in a cul-de-sac, and, like, it gets very
Well, they
crowded
haven't
in there.
done short-term rental yet. They just bought this house in the fall,
Yeah,
so it maybe was the previous owners.
okay.
But we are real strict on saying only 6 people, 4 cars, you know, so we talk to our renters
And then what
one-on-one.
about animals and pets? How many animals
These
and
aren't
pets?
going to allow pets.
Okay,
This one is not.
okay.
And 4 cars, is that 4 trailers, 4 boats, 4 jet skis?
Yeah,
What does that include?
I guess I don't know.
4 cars.
4 cars.
Right, but I'm saying with 4 cars, it could be possibly, there could be 4 trailers, there could be 6 jet skis. That's just gonna clog up the traffic over there. So
Well-
as
I don't think
trailers
that
alone,
driveway
that's
should
all.
Have to be in the driveway on hard
On the-
surface.
Yeah,
Yes.
can't be on the road.
Thank you. Good.
Can't park on the road.
Okay, alright.
And I would just, on that point, I would just remind that, I believe it was last meeting that we added in as part of the condition for that parking, the hard surface.
Has to be on hard surface.
Given the concerns that have been raised, that seems like a very reasonable one to add in this instance, and really frankly, every instance.
Right.
I had a question on that, proposed term as being, for the conditional use being unknown. Is that,
I just didn't, it should have been, indefinite. I just filled that out wrong.
thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask just one question?
Yeah, but if you could please come up, because there are people that watch on TV, so.
Just for clarification,
State your name and address, please.
my name's Jerome Knoll. I have a place on Sir Winston. Several years ago, we came up when they were debating the short-term rentals in the town, and at that time, it was not, there was a big fight because it wasn't part of the zoning in the town. When did that all change to allow all these short-term rentals?
The state took away our ability to prohibit short-term rentals.
The state did. When was that?
2017, I think, late 2017.
I know it's been a few years since
yeah,
we came
so-
up for that meeting.
So the law, so certainly, as you stated, we used to, in, I think it was at that time, 10.03, we prohibited short-term rentals, and we stated our reasons for doing that. The law changed, I think it was late 2017, that took away our municipality's ability, and really any municipality's ability, to prohibit short-term rentals. You can still have short-term rental licenses with certain regulations, and that we certainly have, but we cannot prohibit them.
So in going along with that, I know you're the town, but, you know, there used to be covenants about running businesses in the association properties. Has that changed too, that people can, because to me, rental property is a business, and I'm wondering where that
So
falls in. I know you're not the board of Lake Arrowhead, but to me, that just seems like people are running businesses where they were always prohibited.
So
And-
that's a good point. I would just say that has been litigated, first off, since the law changed. I would also say that there's nothing that prohibits a active, property owners association from prohibiting short-term rentals. Who can't prohibit short-term rentals? Cities, towns, villages, counties. They can't. The property owners association, if they're active and have active covenants, could prohibit it. I will just say that where it's been litigated and failed is when it's vague, because there is, there were, covenants that said no business use, and that did not, to the courts, it wasn't specific enough to cover short-term rental. I get what you're saying, but it needs to be clearer. After that case law, I can tell you it needs to be clearer in covenants than vague. It can't just say no business use, because that's not clear enough, from court decisions.
Okay, well, I was just curious of when all this changed, because several years ago, my brother and I came up for the meeting, and there was a big to-do. And at that time, we left with the board, the town being what we thought was against short-term rentals, and that's changed with laws. So I was just wondering when it all changed. So, okay, thank you.
Just a point of cleanup here. For those of you that have made comments, if you could please sign on the log on the podium there, just because it's part of our records for public hearing. Thanks. Okay, 7E, consideration of a preliminary plat for Sedge Valley subdivision to be located on a 288.42 acre parcel owned by Wisconsin Dunes LLC, described as Section 26, Town 20 North, Range 5 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Parcel numbers of 030-00327-0000, 030-00328-0000, 030-00330-0000, 030-00331-0000, 030-00332-0000, 030-00333-0000, 030-00340-0000, 030-00334-0000, 030-00335-0000, and 030-0039-0010.
So this is a preliminary plat for Archer North LLC for a plat map which is going to be labeled Sedge Village. Attached in the packet was a series of information for a preliminary plat. The town attorney and I did review the preliminary plat and provided some feedback back to Veerbecker, who is drafting this for Archer North. There were 35 property owners that received a letter within 200 feet of the affected property. Had many questions, nothing to distribute as far as anything in writing for tonight. This item does have to be referred to town board and then would come back to you again next month for a final plat, provided both you and the town board were comfortable with the preliminary plat. There are larger copies up here, just for ease in reading. And John Kastner, the engineer on the project from Veerbecker, is joining us tonight for any questions. You wanna come up to the mic, Jeff?
Hello, John Kastner with Veerbecker, civil engineer for the project.
Questions by the commissioners on this particular project? Or the members of the public?
Yeah, I have a few questions.
If you could please come up.
Thor Hansen, I'm off of $9 Trail right around the street from down there. I was just wondering what I didn't get a chance to look at the plat. I'm just wondering if they're gonna cut down, is there gonna be subdivisions? Are they cutting down the trees like they did over by Sand Valley? Cause I think that looks horrible over there right now. So I'm just worried about the nature and the trails, as that gentleman said. There's a lot of walking trails over there in that plat. So I was looking for the forecast of what you guys are thinking. I'm already signed in.
All right. Yeah, thank you for the question. Similar to the Lido site north of Archer there, there's a planned 33 lots that would go in. Lots are spaced to allow for natural design. There's buffers between lots. There's building envelopes that we have called out in the areas to reduce kind of the impervious areas and increase the natural vegetation with that.
What size lots are you gonna make?
They vary from, I believe, probably, I think the smallest lots that we have on there are 5 lots that are about 1.5 acres, and then they go from 4 acres to up to like 20 acres.
Is it fair to say that the larger lots are what are around the exterior of the development, which hit, existing roads?
Yeah, that's in general what that looks like, correct.
There is no golf course affiliated with this village, is that correct?
Correct, no golf course with this portion.
There would be a golf course that would surround this, but there isn't incorporated into this map. Like it's not going to be in the outlot areas that are part of this plat.
Unlike Lido.
Right, where you're facing the golf course.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, the course that they got planned is to the south and a little bit to the east. The south, I believe.
Yeah, there are 5 smaller lots that I had mentioned that are facing the first hole of Sedge Village or Sedge Valley. There's some considerable dunes there that visibility will be limited.
Those are the ones,
They're the ones just south of it.
yeah, okay,
access
yes, there it is, okay. I'm oriented, thank you.
John, do you know what the split on these would be for in rental pool and not in rental pool? I understand that they would all be individually owned, but is there thoughts on that?
I haven't been made aware of splits or how that would be broken up.
If I may, so we had reviewed the preliminary plat, and I was just reviewing the feedback that was sent. It looks like largely those things that we provided as feedback have been taken care of. I did have one thing that I noticed in the comments. We had provided some feedback for possible secondary exit. Do you have any update to give on that? It just notes here that the comment was noted and was under discussion with the owner. And I know it was at least an initial concern of ours, and we were just curious if there's been any update on that you could give?
We are going to have a secondary access. There's 3 different areas that we're kind of evaluating right now.
Okay.
And that's in the process of.
And so will that be noted on the final plat then, wherever that lands?
It might not be noted on the final plat. It would be noted in the engineering drawings that are associated with the plat.
Okay.
Just with the private access nature of that secondary access. It wouldn't necessarily have to be in an easement day one. If it's gonna be utilized more often, it would be put in easements later on.
Okay.
What is the concern of including it on the final plat, just that it would be marked as access and?
My hesitation to putting on there is that it's still in the process of being designed. And if we put it on the final plat that we need to submit in less than 3 weeks, then we're locked into that exact specific location. And I just want to be able to design it to to minimize, the effects of it.
I assume at this point our fire chief nor our police chief has evaluated this layout?
Not the access points of it, no. I mean, we have noted as part of the plat that the width of the roads have to be noted on the plat and that they have to be wide enough to get emergency vehicles in there. That's also the piece of having the secondary access. You can imagine if you're this lot here and I have to drive all the way out to get to the hydrant and drive all the way back in, it's a lot easier if I can just get out to 16th.
See, that's where I was heading with this, so.
Yeah.
To that point, if this body recommended to the town board approval conditioned on the final plat designating some secondary access point, would you be able to have that piece worked out and at least give some idea of where that secondary access point would be?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that is a concern, certainly for some of those lots, that not having that or not having some assurance that that's going to be there is, would be a safety concern, potentially.
Okay. We can do that.
I guess I see the point, but we also have areas in town of older developments that have far longer stretches of road than this that don't have secondary access.
Yeah, but let's not do that again.
Well,
And this
I'm
is
just
not-
saying.
This is all private roads, I mean, those are all public roads, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, it's, I'd say, almost 2 miles from Archer to the first lots around the main area there. And they're both curvy roads. So if we're going in there with fire apparatus would be, I wouldn't wanna have my house on fire in one of those lots back there, and knowing that it's gonna take a long time for the fire department to get there. If they could come down 16th or 15th Avenue and then come around and get into that subdivision off of either 16th Avenue or Archer, would be fine.
Yep, one of the options is that coming off of 15th and coming down south of Lot 1. That's on there, so.
So one more question. What road is this for your access? This one right here. What road is that?
The question was, what is the extension of 15th Avenue? So
That's 15th Avenue?
Yep.
Is there any plans on doing any access on 16th Avenue?
Currently, there's no plans on 16th Avenue.
Oh,
That's on the far
okay.
west.
Okay.
Right now, it's the main entrance to Sand Valley.
16?
No, coming in off of Archer.
I'm fine with that,
That's-
16.
And going into this subdivision.
Yeah, that's fine.
Again, depending on how that emergency access would come out of there, it's possible that it would exit to 16th, but that wouldn't be for public. That would be in case of an emergency,
Like a one-way or like emergency only?
emergency only.
Okay.
Yeah, that would only be in a
Just
case of,
trying to minimize the traffic,
Yeah.
especially on the weekends on 16th. There's a lot of kids that walk up and down 16th Avenue. on-
Chalet.
go to Chalet, they walk there and they ride their little bikes. And we have a lot of people up on the weekends, you know, that's just a safety concern I had, that's all.
So no access to this subdivision from 16th, only if there was an emergency exit that would come there.
If it had, yeah. So it's emergency vehicles, there's no problem.
Is this part of Sand Valley?
Correct.
Sand Valley owns this subdivision.
Yep.
Archer North owns it,
Yeah.
so it's the subsidiary.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item?
I'm wondering if we should even, approve this without that access being on the map.
So remember that this is preliminary. You'll still see this is a recommendation to the town board on the preliminary. You'll still see a final, that would still come, before you, so, you can make that, which is what I had mentioned, you can make that just a condition, or part of your recommendation to the town board, that they show a secondary access point for emergency vehicles, by the time that we consider the final plat. So I would recommend that you do that, because I don't think that there's any other reason to hold this up. Look, we did a very extensive review, of the preliminary plat, and they've taken care of all other things that we've asked them to, address on the preliminary plat as I review, the checklist.
It's not an item that would be part of motion tonight, but just also to mention that we have been having conversations about having an additional hydrant, well put out on 15th private, in case of, in need of fire access out there for apparatuses. We've been advised that that's still under advisement, and I think that as we continue to grow out there and have this, it would make sense that if there's a conversation that can be had about that being secured, that we could have a separate hydrant out there that would be a well on Sand Valley's property that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Number 8, to close public hearing. Can I get a motion?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Wiesinger, second by Halverson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 9, discussion and possible action, meeting minutes from Tuesday, February 8th, 2022.
I'll make a motion, we approve the public minutes as published.
Second.
A motion by Halverson, a second by Wiesinger. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 10, discussion and possible discussion and possible recommendation to the town board. Consideration of the proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment from 4th Street to rural residential and zoning map amendment from FR forest and outdoor recreation to R5.
At this point.
We'll discuss that
Yep.
during, okay. Rural Estate Residence District relating to the property owned by John Ames, described as follows. Parcel number 030-00536-0000, also described as the northwest quarter, southwest quarter, section 03, town 20 north, range 06 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Total area 40 acres.
If I may, two things. First off, just a reminder, numbers 10 through 13 all have findings of fact. So if you could please consider that as part of any motion that you would make. Second, I did want to comment on it as it was brought up. If you were to build into a recommendation the limitation of dividing, I would only say that we would ask the applicant if he's willing to agree to that. And if he's willing to agree to that it would not be able to be subdivided, then there'd be a little bit more assurance that I think we'd have to maybe possible future land divisions. That'd be if he's willing to agree to that. You know, I don't know that he is or not.
Would that be better than the exception, the condition to have him come back for any, I mean,
Well, you can definitely.
I don't
add that.
remember the exact words you.
Yeah, you can definitely make that a condition. That's a condition you can make without them necessarily agreeing to it. I mean, that's just a condition you make that we then have in the property file that if there was ever a request for a land division, that it has to go through the plan commission. I mean, that's a condition I think you would want to put on there, given the conversations and concerns that, that you've had today. I was specifically referencing the question that Mr. Ferdine brought up, which was if we can put as a condition that he cannot subdivide that land. And I'm saying that if you do that, I think it would only be if the applicant agreed to it. Because if you impose that as a condition without them agreeing to it, I'm just thinking longer term, if they did it, are we reverting it back to FR? No, because we wouldn't allow what would be on there as, you know, as FR. So, I don't know where the teeth are if we just imposed it unilaterally. So I think we'd want to, if you're concerned with that, if that is something that you want to discuss with the applicant, you'd have to have that conversation with the applicant. If that is what would make you feel comfortable proceeding with R4, then I think you'll want to have that conversation with the applicant.
So the difference in the findings of fact would be any land subdivision would have to return to plan commission, that you could do, or plan commission discussed with applicant, land will not be divided, and applicant agreed.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at this on the map, should we have a motion before we discuss this, by the way? We good?
This is typically what we do. so-
Okay, cool. But looking at it on the map, you know, it's kitty corner to a subdivision, and if we want to keep that type of housing development next to each other, I mean, if either one of those 40-acre lots on either side of this came to us with a subdivision, I mean, wouldn't that be what we were looking for? And so that puts that other property to where it might be good to be. So my point is, right now, we might not want it to be divided, but 5 years from now, maybe one of those other adjacent 40-acre lots are divided.
Just remember we've had requests for these lots and denied their rezoning in the past. Twice,
Based on the comprehensive future land use map.
yes.
So, okay, so I don't have that overlay here, so there's something, okay, I'm just, because I'm
Well,
just.
those were for subdivisions,
Right.
right? Those were for smaller lot size subdivisions as a stated intention. But I think they also were for R4, right?
They were for R4, but
Yeah.
they're also surrounded by forestry property or land right now, where this one is adjoining or touching the housing development in Walden area.
But the property owner agrees to the condition that it can't be subdivided in the future. How does that work if it gets contested? Say the 40 acres adjacent sells and the then plan commission allows that to go to R4 and get subdivided.
Yeah, I mean, the next question is, so do we record it on the, record it on the property because it's a limitation? I think the point that was brought up, which is that development changes over time, you know, is a valid one. And so you know, the point made about having the applicant, you know, see if they agree, that's one point, you know, that states our intention. But to your point, if something changes down the line, I mean, it gives us less teeth unless we record it right on the property.
Well, if the present owner does agree to do it and he sells the property, then what happens?
Well, that's why you record it on the property. It'd be something that'd be on the title. I mean, they'd find
Yeah.
it during the title search, and it may impact the sale and it may not impact the sale. But it's certainly a cloud on the title if you record it on the property.
think that would be the best to contact him and see if he would go along with it.
I think the applicant is here.
Come on up, give to the mic.
Hello, I'm John Ames. I own the property. When I purchased the property 4 years ago, one of the reasons I purchased it because all the large properties around it, there wasn't that many houses. It touches the subdivision, but it's still far enough away it doesn't really affect me. But I come up here, I go deer hunting. I want to use it for turkey hunting. Ride my four-wheeler up there because the trail goes right by it. And this is just really the next logical step to build something because I live 2 hours away. So that's what I'm looking at. I have no intention of subdividing it or putting a bunch of different houses or whatever on it. I just want 1,000 square foot place where I can come up to, enjoy the property, enjoy the area, and that's pretty much it.
So you wouldn't have any concerns then if that was if that limit was put on your property?
That would be fine. It won't bother me at all.
I think what we're concerned is mainly sometime in the future that you would sell that property. And if it's just R4 with no restrictions, it could be subdivided.
But he's agreeing to allow us to put a restriction on the property.
Right.
So then it would be on the property even if he sold it.
And we can work together to get that piece in place, provided the town board, approves the recommendation.
How would that be worded?
As part of your motion, you're saying? So it would be worded as a recommendation to the town board to approve the comp plan amendment and the zoning change to R4, with the condition that an agreement be reached with the property owner or applicant to limit the ability to subdivide the property. And you can just leave it at that. I mean, I think what you're asking is for it to not be able to be subdivided. It stay as the parcel is drawn. So that would be my recommended motion if that's something that you're going to make a recommendation on. And
I don't
also
know if
to
I can repeat
also to-
that, but-
Well, also to approve the findings of fact. So I'll state a motion, and if you agree with it, you can move.
Attorney, before we get into that,
Yep.
under the finding of the fact, now we have it listed as a R5.
Yeah, you'd have to, so I was just gonna read it. Cause you're going to be adopting the findings of fact, you'd adjust that, to R4 as part of your recommendation, with the condition that I would state. You ready?
Yeah. No.
Okay, it would be a motion, to recommend to the town board the approval of the comprehensive plan map amendment from forestry to rural residential, and the zoning map amendment from FR to R4, and adopt the findings of fact with adjustment of R5 to R4, and make the recommendation for a condition be placed that the property owner enter into an agreement to limit the ability to subdivide the property.
So moved?
Second.
Well, you guys got off easy. Okay, so we've got a motion by Williams, a second by Wiesinger. Is there any further discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Item 11. Discussion and possible recommendation to the town board. Consideration of the proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment from forestry to outdoor recreation and zoning map amendment from FR, forest and outdoor recreation, to PSP, public, semi-public, relating to the property owned by the town of Rome, described as follows. Parcels number 030-00977-0000, 030-00978-0000, 030-00998-0015, 030-00998-0020, 030-00998-0025, 030-01032-0000, 030-01033-0000, 030-01039-0000, and 030-01066-0000. All parcels also described as part of sections 28, 29, 32, and 33 of Town 20 North, Range 06 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Total area 388.95 acres.
Glad he was the chairman.
I swear I was
Oh, me.
thinking never be chair of this thing.
You can say 0 tonight, yeah.
Gotta be a better way. I'll make a motion to change the zoning,
Second.
to recommend the change of zoning from FR to public, semi-public, incorporating the findings of fact and all those parcel numbers.
Okay.
Just, can I clarify something?
Please,
In
please.
your motion? Are you making the motion to recommend to the town board the comprehensive plan map amendment and the rezoning, and to adopt the findings of fact as
That-
presented?
I thought that's what I said.
And, Ron, is that your intention for the second?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion by Williams, a second by Fergine. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 12, discussion and possible action. Consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. The short-term rental at property located at 341 Spring Trail, owned by Miller Nakusa Investments LLC, also described as Lot 72 of North Water addition to Lake Arrowhead, southeast quarter, northwest quarter, section 18, Town 20 North, Range 06 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 030-03680-0000.
I'll make a motion to issue a conditional use permit for the property at 341 Spring Trail, with the findings of fact and occupancy to be 16, maximum number of cars on hard surface pavement would be 6, and term is indefinite as long as there's a short-term rental license in place.
And the property manager?
And the property manager within 25 miles recorded with the town.
And just to clarify for both of the, I'm sorry, I'll wait for a second.
Can we have a second? Yeah.
Second.
Clarify for both of the short-term rentals, this is one step of the process. This doesn't mean that you can start renting until you finish all steps of the process. Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Weeginger, a second by Williams. Discussion?
I take exception to that occupancy of 16 people. If you had 16 men in that are up here playing golf and then come back to this house, I think if I were a neighbor, I would really be up in arms about it, because I think it could be very loud, vulgar language, whatever, and I think we should not allow 16 people to be occupying that at any one time.
What about 4 families of 4? 16 guys aren't gonna rent this place, it's too.
Did you hear his comment?
If you wanna come up to the mic,
Yeah.
please.
Understood your concern, but I'm a golfer myself. I would never bring 15 of my friends to stay in the same house. It's just wouldn't happen. However, if I had 4 kids, which I do, I want to bring another family with 4 kids and another family, I think that is doable, and I don't think it'd be quite as big of an issue as what you're theorizing here. So we're not marketing this to 15 guys. That's not our plan here. In fact, I wouldn't even rent it to 16 guys, but I don't want to limit the family aspect of it either. So that's how I'd respond to that.
Jamie, the occupancy is determined by the square footage of the house, is that?
Living space and bathrooms. This house does have 3.5 bathrooms, and it's a fairly large home. It's a large home.
It's 4,200 square feet, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and to that point, I would just note that how we set our occupancy is based on a pretty standard formula that we have in our ordinance, and so we've been pretty consistent with that condition. And the reason we do that is because that would hold up. That's a condition that would be specific, measurable, reasonable, all of those things, you know, within Act 67, and is clearly stated in our ordinance how we set that.
Yeah. Would there be any, liability's not the right word, but to have a variant to not follow the same formula to determine occupancy?
Well, if someone challenged the conditions, I think you want to, after Act 67, you want to be able to say that our conditions are specific, measurable, practical, they're related to the purpose of our ordinance. Thus far on our conditional use permits and the conditions we put in place, they are.
And consistency is a big part of that?
Consistency is important, yes.
I assume, has the fire chief had a chance to do a review yet, or is that later in the process?
He has not done the inspection of this property, but he would have to inspect and clear it before it would be licensed. I think the applicant wanted to wait. They weren't quite ready for him to come through the property.
Okay.
But it would not be licensed until the fire inspector said it had the required amount of smoke detectors and CO detectors.
Egress and everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
exits marked, yeah. And he does check all the closets for extra beds.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The record show Fergine is opposed. Alright. We're on item 13, correct?
Mhm.
Discussion and possible action, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. Short-term rental property located at 407 St. Andrews Trail, owned by Brian and Vicky Oakes, also described as lots 33, 34, and 35 of St. Andrews addition to Lake Arrowhead, southwest quarter, northwest quarter, section 20, town 20 north, range 06 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 030-04550-0010.
Motion to approve.
We will need findings of fact.
I can. Ron,
Trying to find it.
so would it be maximum occupancy shall be 6, maximum number of vehicles shall be 4 on hard surfaces only, property manager located within 25 miles of the short-term rental, and information on file with the town, duration indefinite as long as they maintain a current short-term rental license, and to approve then or adopt the findings of fact.
I agree.
Second.
Before the call, I'm sorry, we had a side conversation. Did you include the hard surface parking?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was on the previous end, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion by Fergine and a second by Wiesner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 14, Discussion and possible recommendation to the town board, consideration of a preliminary plat for Sedge Village subdivision to be located on a 288.42 acre parcel owned by Wisconsin Dunes LLC, described as section 26, town 20 north, range 5 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Parcel numbers of 030-00327-0000, 030-00328-0000, 030-00330-0000, 030-00331-0000, 030-00332-0000, 030-00333-0000, 030-00340-0000, 030-00334-0000, 030-00335-0000, and 030-00339-0010.
I'll make a motion to, recommend to the town board the consideration of the primary plat map for Sedge Village as described, totaling 288.42 acres.
And, Mr. Wiesinger, are you, also going to include in your motion, recommendation that they provide us, with the final plat, location of a secondary access point for emergency
Yes,
purposes?
include that, please.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Wiesner, a second by Williams. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
So, you'll be on town board March 17th?
Okay.
Because the zoning changes are a recommendation to town board, so we'll be in contact after that, but you can feel free to attend the March 17th at 5 o'clock also, same room. Same for John. Okay.
okay. Item number 15, discussion and possible referral to future agenda. Review the zoning district requirements regarding allowed number of accessory structures and lot coverage by buildings.
Okay, so this is really just a discussion item only. I'd ask that this be on the agenda, for purposes of reviewing with you what our current, regulations are and getting input from you all on possible, amendments to our ordinance, relating to accessory structures, the number of them and lot coverage of buildings. This item comes after the town has received, a number of requests, regarding how many accessory structures they might be able to have on their lot, in certain residential districts, and also, if we have any limitations and where on lot coverage. So in other words, how many and how big, right? That's what they tend to relate to. So I wanna go through first what our ordinance regulations have right now, and then maybe I'll feed into what, discussion on maybe what your thoughts are on placing regulations in other sections. So currently, our ordinance regulations, do have in place regulations related to where there isn't a principal structure, or dwelling present. We limit that to a shed of 150 square feet or less, right? Where there is a principal structure present, then we do have regulations in LD zoned, in our Lake District. We have regulations, in fact, to number and to lot coverage. Number, we have it specifically in there under the permitted uses, one shed. Also, we have a limitation for, the lot coverage, and I believe it's, not counting driveways, limited to 20% of the total lot area. That's in LD, Lake District. We do not have that kind of limitation in any of our residential, and that's really what we're talking about here. The concern would be the residential zoning districts, so your R1, R1C, R2, R3, could be R4 and R5, but of course, as you move up the scale, the lot sizes get bigger, as we've talked about today, right? The question is, do we want to either put a limitation on number of accessory structures, So for example, not more than 2 or not more than 3. In residential districts, do we want to put lot coverage regulations in our residential districts? That's part of the question. The other part of the question would be, if so, what residential districts? And I'll lead in, as I promised, I'll lead into that conversation with just the point that a good starting point beyond the overview that I gave you is always the purpose of districts. So as I looked at the purpose of districts, I did note that in R1, R1C, and to some extent, although not quite as directly stated, R2, you do have language under the purpose that specifically says in intention to avoid overcrowding. So that kind of speaks to the number a little bit in those smaller residential districts, you know, with your R1, your R2. The other point would be that R1 through R3 have that minimum lot size of 1 acre, so those could be small lots as well. So it's really a lead into a larger conversation. If you do want to potentially limit the number of accessory structures or the lot coverage of those particularly smaller lots, we need to put that into our ordinance. Right now, we don't have that limitation, and so if somebody wanted to put a large number of accessory structures, we have nothing that limits them outside of LD, the Lake District, if they have a principal structure on their property. Did I get all the points?
Mm-hmm.
Does this originate from something?
Just a number of requests. Probably the 2 most common requests, and if I'm misstating that, let me know. How many and how big are probably the 2 most common questions that you get. And so I think that's what this doesn't come from any one request. I think that's a common request as we reviewed our ordinance. I'll just also say that as we reviewed the ordinance, it was with the idea that there was a thought that we had limited it to 2, but we don't.
So the origin of this is, the answer is limitless.
Outside of LD.
Yeah, outside of LD.
But,
Assuming your principal structure is there.
Sure.
yep, I would, even, as people learn what the rule is, even before principal structure, and Emily's only been here 2 days and we've started camping permits, so maybe they're a close tie at this moment, but the most common question we get is, how big of a garage can I build? How big of a shed can I build? Where can I buy camping permits? Might be a close second, but
I think there's value to the discussion, but just like anything else that we change on large scales, I always get concerned about how do you keep track of who now is, you know, a non-conformance versus a go-forward basis. Like, we're not very good at that, especially if we look at the camping changes we made. That was sweeping across the town, but that's gonna get challenged on a one-by-one basis, right? And it could be endless.
Yeah, permits gives you a point in time.
Right.
To catch some of those legal non-conforming. So we're talking about those that have greater than whatever number you might put. You know, the permit might catch that.
right, if you had, let's say, would be allowed more than 2, but you had 3, if your permit was taken today, we would know that you would be a non-conforming use.
Yeah, I think that's how you would treat that. That's probably the best we have.
And if they were smaller, what we often call as a garden shed, so 150 or less square footage, you'd still have to take a zoning permit, even though you don't need a building permit, we would have record of the zone, when the zoning permit was taken for it.
And so the burden is always, first off, the burden to prove non-conforming use or structure and non-conformity is on the person, or the individual that is saying that they have a non-conforming structure. In this case, we also have specific documentation. If they followed the rules as they're supposed to, they would have a zoning permit or another permit for building, and that would be what we would base our decision on, whether or not they are allowed to have more or greater lot area, all of that.
So I guess the question is the commissioners if they wanna see recommendations from town staff on a future agenda on this.
Yeah, and to give some guidance, so again, I would ask that you, if you are going to make that, ask for those recommendations, that you also maybe give some idea of, are we talking all residential districts, like including R4 and R5? Or are we talking about those ones that could potentially have some really small lot sizes? I think that would be part of, at least, it'd be nice to have your thoughts on what you'd like to see. And then we can bring forward some recommendations, we can bring forward some language. But
Well, it's to me, it's like if we put some sort of percentage on R5, I mean, it would end up being like a shopping mall, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, it would be a airplane hangar. So I don't know if it is worth making a change to R5, right? I mean,
Aren't most of the questions coming from R1 through R3s, the smaller lots?
Yes.
I think that's the ones that we would wanna address. 4s and 5s, I don't think would be a
no,
concern.
yeah.
Well, you have that to a point where the R4 has to be, or R5 has to be 1,500 square feet, correct?
well, that's the house, but also the R5.
Buildings, yeah.
R5 has to be 35 acres, R4 has to be 4 acres. I mean, you've already got lot limitations when you have those, where that's why I pulled those out as I gave you the overview. We have other districts, the lower number, that have minimum lot sizes of 1 acre. Those are the ones that could potentially be things that, again, going to the purpose of those areas, they say their intention is to not allow overcrowding. Well, if you had a whole bunch of accessory structures, that's gonna start to look pretty overcrowded.
Yeah, it doesn't take too many to fill up an acre of property. Along with a primary residence.
If you had one or the other, a limitation on number or a limitation on lot coverage, it would be less of a concern, where you could start somewhere, right? But it's harder when you don't have either. And so really the answer, unfortunately, right now that we give is that there's no limitation, right? And
I agree, Jerry, about really it's 1 through 3. But I would be interested to know more what the norm is, like something. I mean, other municipalities, other restrictions on this, because I feel like I'm sort of ignorant on the topic, you know.
What does Grand Rapids have?
limitation is 2, although some districts will allow for a conditional use permit to allow for more than 2. So they place as a permitted use a limitation of 2 accessory structures. Conditional use on some districts for the more. So in other words, the Plan Commission gets a larger review when you start getting that number higher than the 2. Other districts, will just set to 2, or so that's how Grand Rapids does. I will say that Grand Rapids has both number and lot coverage. They have that in their smaller district, the smaller districts.
You control the size of the accessory buildings.
So what if we were to mirror the lake plan? What would that give us?
Well, Lake does 1 shed, so you might wanna.
It's
so
one
you
shed
could
or one
mirror
s-
You could mirror the lake with the 20%, and that probably isn't too horrible. The lake does limit to 1 shed, though, I think, doesn't it?
1 shed.
One shed, but one accessory building. If you got a detached garage, I don't think you're allowed a shed.
Yeah, you can have a shed.
Yeah, I think
You
oughta have a half
it listed as 1 shed.
Yeah,
Listed
sheds
as
are
one-
called out explicitly.
It does list it as 1 shed.
Okay.
Rather than we create the wheel, maybe that's something that works.
That would essentially be 2 accessory structures. You'd be allowed 2 accessory structures.
So 1 shed, 1 garage, and then the footprint was the other part of that equation.
In Lake District, it's 20%, not including driveway.
Probably a starting point.
That
huh?
seems like a great starting point. I agree.
Try to keep it simple.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing. R1 to R3. For a starting point, mirror the Lake District. Okay? So one accessory structure, one shed.
Would it be helpful, we could also bring back, like, how much square footage are you talking by 20% too? We'll do a couple average size. Lots vary, right, but if we did a 1 acre, a 3 acre, and a 5 acre lot, what are you talking by 20%?
Yeah, that's fair,
1
because these
acre.
are abstract numbers right now.
1 acre would be 8,700 square feet.
Yeah.
Not 20%.
Yeah, give an example, like a 3-car garage is about 1,000 square foot. So as a percentage of an acre, small.
So you could do 8 times that.
Yeah, 20%.
Yeah.
I'd put a conditional use on those vehicles.
Well, the primary structure's gotta come out of that 8,700 also.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, you're,
So you got
you're-
1,500 for average house, or 2,000, leaves you 6,700 for accessory buildings.
It's a lot.
yeah, so the
A lot of-
20%,
That's a big,
the 20% is pretty, that's a pretty standard, lot coverage, first off. Just cause the question was asked, what do you see? I have seen a lot of that where it is used as like 20%. So
That also
that's
includes-
pretty much in line. The number of accessory structures tends to change from municipality to municipality, cause again, it's good to look at what other, towns and that are enforcing, but you also have to assess what, you know, what works with this town and what would work with this town.
that 20% also includes decks and any impervious surface other than driveways.
Correct.
Not decks, if you have you only have to have 1/8 of an inch, cause the water can seep through. So concrete any hard surface patios, but we exclude driveways. The county for Lake District is 15 though, so we always tell people to figure the math both ways in Lake District, cause theirs is more restrictive than ours.
Yeah, it's, so the way we word it, sorry, when I say correct, then you said a couple different things. Our ordinance uses impervious building and ancillary surfaces excluding driveways. That's our exact wording in our ordinance. So the deck would not, as long as it meets those requirements.
Okay.
So we're not including an impervious surface, like a blacktop driveway is not included in that coverage?
Not for us.
Right, we exclude driveways.
But the associations might, correct?
The county,
County.
yeah, associations don't, they usually handle more with tree coverage than per se impervious surface. But the county in Lake District has a more strict standard than us, yes. And if you were, constructing a new home, you would be held to that higher standard in Lake District with county in order to get your permit.
Okay, so unless anyone has any other feedback, I think that gives a starting point to put together what ordinance language might look like, some examples, so we can kind of get our hands around, what the 20% limitation would mean for lot sizes, and then we can kind of go from there. So we'll review it, and then decide if we want to move forward or not. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
It's consistent.
All right, thank you.
Good idea.
Okay, not yet. Dates and items for future agenda and meetings. Item 16, next agenda items.
We're gonna have 2 site plan of operations, the return of the plat, 4 short-term rentals, and probably the return of those condo documents, so bring a snack.
So the condo documents at the clubhouse or?
Yes, yes. Next meeting will be a lengthy meeting.
Okay. Item 17, next meeting date and time, April 12th, 2022 at 4 PM. Good with that? With that, Ron, I will seek a motion to adjourn. Okay, we got
I'll second it.
motion by Ron, second by Larry. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.